When we used to meet at the Jewish Community Center, we had a section over to the left where we had several candles, and people every time we'd meet would light a candle in memory of something or celebrate something or a passing of somebody or special memory. Pat Sullivan made the idea, well, we're virtual now, but we can still light a candle. And I thought, yes, we can. Little slow, Kenneth, a little slow. So what we did is we put down here, after greetings and announcements before we begin the service, a lighting of a memorial candle, which is the same big candle we used to have at the Jewish Community Center, except over all the years it's gotten obviously shorter. Who are we lighting a memorial candle in memory of or in respect for today? Number one, the Gaza Strip. I do not know how the world can go by and let this happen. By the way, I need to let all of you know, you probably have read this, but just about all of Reform, Conservative, and Reconstruction Judaism are against Israeli policy. Virtually every Jewish person I know is against Israeli policy as well. So let us be very clear: what the government of Israel does not speak for our Jewish brothers and sisters and cousins who live around us here. Gaza Strip is number one. Number two, Ukraine. I hope nobody is thinking about giving away land in Ukraine without Ukraine not having any say in what's going on. And finally, remember the eastern part of the Congo. There is continual warfare there that we don't hear much about. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. In the last 15 years, 12 million people have died in the borders of Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, and Tanzania, and Eastern Congo. And we don't hear much about that. Our species, much, 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 much hostility and death. Remember the Gaza. Light a candle if you would. Light it if you would. Andrea, if you would be kind enough, if you would be so kind to lead us this morning. Andrea wrote the call to worship. She wrote the first prayer. She wrote the closing prayer and the benediction. So we're going to ask Andrea if she would be kind enough to lead the call to worship, if you would.
Blessed are we who gather with open hearts today. Blessed are we, chalice-lighters and candle-snuffers alike. Blessed are we, the heretics, outcasts, and walkers of our own way. Blessed are we, the border crossers, refugees, the wanderers who are not lost. Blessed are we, the transgressors, the trespassers, passers-by, and the takers of causes. Blessed are we, the hand extenders, the sign makers, the protestors, the protectors. Blessed are we, the friend, the stranger, the lonely, the hidden, the visible, the authentic. Blessed are we who rise in solidarity. Blessed are we who cannot. Blessed are we who do not. Blessed are we, for this is our beloved community, and this is who we are. O Creator, creating creation, let us sing a new song today. An honest song, a song of the fear and the terror, of the comfort and safety. Let us sing a new song of the broken chains and the open cells. Let us sing a song of liberation that remembers nobody is beyond grace. Selah.
The Reverend Mr. Harcourt folk agree, nodding their heads in solid satisfaction is just the man for this community. Tall, young, urbane, but capable of action, he pleases where he serves. He marshals out the younger crowd, lacks trace of clerical unction. Cheers the Kiwanis and the Eagle Scout, is popular at every public function. And in the pulpit eloquently speaks on diverse matters with both wit and clarity. Art, education, God, the early Greeks, psychiatrist, St. Paul, true Christian charity, vessel repairs that shortly must begin, all things but sin. He seldom mentions sin. And after this, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, seduce him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to subdue him. And we will give each of you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, oh, do please tell me. And Nakia will lead us in a prayer.
I love this prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And Felix, would you cut to just my picture as I read this? The God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider or some loathsome insect over the fire, abhors you and is dreadfully provoked. His wrath towards you burns like fire. He looks upon you as worthy of nothing else but to be cast into that fire. You are 10,000 times so abominable in his eyes as the most hateful and venomous serpent in ours. That is a direct quote from a sermon delivered on July 8th, 1741, by Jonathan Edwards to the Congregational Church out in Western Massachusetts. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. I hope you all see. Well, yes. Did you like that wonderful cassock and bands? That's where you're supposed to really wear that, with a black cassock. And that was from my seminary days. Can you believe that? I can still wear it. I wasn't sure how to use it. I couldn't find buttons. And the bands, yes. And there are still, by the way, lots of clergy who wear the black and the white bands, believe it or not. I wanted to wear it during the sermon, the share this morning, but I thought I would get carried away. So I decided, lest I get carried away, that I would, yes. There is a great way to begin today, since we're talking about sin. Growing up, the famous song, oh, it's gin, gin, gin that makes you want to sin by the shore, by the shore. Do you know that one? Oh, it's gin, gin, gin that makes you want to sin by the shore, by the shore. Oh, it's gin, gin, gin that makes you want to sin by the old New Jersey shore. I'll stop. All right, moving along, sin, yes. We don't often discuss sin today, and you're going to find that in the next several shares that we're going to be dealing with old-fashioned theological topics. Last time it was God, this time sin. To show you how that word may be outdated, the Oxford Dictionary has deleted the word for its younger readers, saying it is a word they do not understand anymore. only old people understand or have ever heard the word. I didn't know that. Sin originally in Hebrew means missing the mark, which implies you can go again to try to hit the mark. But it meant miss the mark. Sin has been originally identified as a breaking of religious or moral law. And then there are another sets of other definitions: an offense against religious or moral law, an action that is or is felt to be highly reprehensible. That's a nice word, reprehensible. An often serious shortcoming, a transgression of the law of God, a vitiated state of human nature in which the self is estranged from God. And I'm sure you've all heard of the great numbers of sins that have been listed. Pope Gregory in 590 CE came up with the famous 7 deadly sins. I wonder how many of you can think of them right off the bat. Lust, sometimes used as concupiscence. Lust. By the way, it reminds me of a very famous quote by Augustine, who came up with concupiscence. He said, "O Lord, make me chaste, but not yet." That's from Augustine. And the other was from Martin Luther. "If you must sin, sin boldly." How do you like those were 2 famous quotes from Augustine? And yes, you must sin, sin boldly. I'm trying to imagine these guys coming up before ordination committees as well. Here we go. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, meaning you're lazy, anger, envy, and pride. And it's funny, I think the way we would top this may depend upon our age. When I was in college, I was absolutely convinced lust was the #1 sin. But now I'm not sure if it's a toss-up between greed and pride. 2 other things I would wonder why they're not on the list. I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Willful ignorance. People who refuse to change their mind or look at anything new. Willful ignorance. We'll come to that in a few minutes about taking the creation story of Adam and Eve literally. Willful ignorance of refusing to look at modern anthropology and dating of this earth. The earth, by the way, is not 6,000 years old, in case you might have been told that, is 4.53 billion years old. The other thing I was sorry that's not on here are the evil twins. Do you know the evil twins? Resentment and grievance. Ah, yes. Talk about sins, getting seduced by evil, by resentment and grievance. Another list, by the way, just to be historical, is Gandhi's list. And I think you might like this too. Totally different point of view from a person from India. Wealth without work. Pleasure without conscience. Knowledge without character. Commerce without morality. Science without humanity. Worship without sacrifice. Politics without principle. Ooh, these are all good too. They're all good. Why such behavior? What is it with our species that enables us to do all of these things? A couple of historical precedents, by the way.
I can't.
I thought you might be fascinated to know that Aristotle sounds extraordinarily modern. Aristotle writes about 400 BCE, that's about 2,500 years ago. And he said, humans are not born predetermined with moral character. They are born in a state that could be described as having potential for both virtue and vice. When you're born, you're not X or Y, but you have potential for either. Aristotle suggests that while humans may have a natural propensity for self-interest and impulsive behavior, they also have an interest for the opposite as well. We are a blank slate, according to Aristotle, and it's how we live our life and what happens to us that determines our behavior. Judaism has a different take as well than the ones you may have heard in Western thought. Judaism teaches that human beings are not basically sinful. We come into the world neither carrying the burden of sin committed by our ancestors, nor tainted by it. But we have human inclinations. Those inclinations are what we would often call sin. And by the way, if you think about what it's like being born, there is a very, very, very famous quote. We are born wet, naked, and hungry, and then things get worse. So if you're wondering about sin and behavior and the like, then of course we come to the nub of it all in Western thought. It starts with the doctrine of original sin, first subscribed to by Augustine of Hippo, which was a small town northeast of Carthage. And Augustine was, of course, famous for that quote, "Oh Lord, make me chaste, but not yet." When he finally yet got over, he decides to confess his sins, which I guess were many and plentiful. No videos were taken back then, by the way, so we could verify this. And we come up with the idea. Now, I hope you're listening to this because this gets fascinating. Adam and Eve were a real couple, and they were told not to eat of a certain fruit. And by the way, it was not an apple. If we look at the geography mentioned in Genesis, that would put us in where modern day Iraq is. The closest apple trees, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago to that area were 1,000 miles away in Kazakhstan. All the Bible ever said was fruit. And by the way, Lilith is never mentioned in the Bible either. All it said is fruit. They were told not to eat of a fruit, a special fruit. Then comes the character, the serpent. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, the serpent was not a snake. The serpent was a beast of the field. It was not like you and I think of a snake. It was a serpent. The serpent goes, and by the way, I wish you were in class with me when I used to do this. I would ask for a volunteer, preferably a female, if somebody would volunteer. So at this point, Pat Sullivan, being the good soldier that she is going to raise her hand and say, "Okay, I'll volunteer." And everybody says, "Dude, this is not a good idea. You know, Claus, this is not a good idea." So I said, "Pat, you're going to be Eve." She said, "Oh, no." And I would come over and be the serpent, of course. And I would do the following. "Why, my, oh, my, I do declare, oh, it is hot and sticky. Ah, it is hot and sticky here in this garden. Woo! Oh, my, oh, my. Why, Miss Eve." Andrea's dying over there. Andrea's absolutely dying. So I come up and I'd say, "Why, Miss Eve? Why, Miss Eve, how are you? Why, Miss Eve, are y'all hot and sticky?" Oh, meanwhile, Pat Sullivan would be dying in class, absolutely dying. Everybody would be roaring up, everybody screaming. And everybody said, "We told you not to do this." And I said, "Oh, my, oh, my, I just happen to have here some fruit." "Oh, why, Eve, Miss Eve, I have here some cool, juicy fruit. Ooh, 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 it is cool and juicy. Why, Miss Eve? Why, Miss Eve, would you all want some of this cool, juicy fruit?" And at this point, Andrea's saying to herself, "How did you ever get ordained? How did you ever pass an ordination committee?" Yes, so at this point, the class roars, and we go talk about the story. And of course, the story is that Eve eats some of the fruit. Now, by the way, let me make it very clear. Most people have never actually read the story because guess who is standing right beside Eve? Nick. His former name was Adam. Yes, Nick. His former name was Adam, by the way. And he's standing right beside Eve. Now, while I am talking to Eve, did Adam say anything at all like this is not a good idea? Did he say, whoa, we're not supposed to do this? No, not at all. Did, however, Nick grab some of that cool, juicy fruit in the hot and sticky garden? Well, yes, he did. Yes, he munched right away. And then the story continues. God was walking in the garden in the cool of the evening, and God says, Adam, where are you? And Adam said, I'm hiding. Why? Because I was naked. Andrew's dying over here. I said, I was naked, and then God says, who told you you were naked? And at this point, Adam says, I hope you're listening to this. This is the worst of the worst of the worst of the story. Adam says to God, the woman you gave me caused me to do this, which means he is taking no responsibility. He's going to sue God tomorrow with an American lawyer, and he's going to blame me for all the credit. Let me ask you all, if I had Nick on the stand right now as a lawyer, I said, Nick, were you right there beside Miss Eve? I can't hear. Speak louder, please. Yes.
Yes.
Did you at any time intervene and say to the serpent, we're not supposed to do that? Did you say anything at all?
Nope.
But did you eat of that fruit?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, did he eat of the fruit? Then I ask you, why did the woman get blamed and not you? Why is it women always get sentenced? They were the first ones. Please tell me. I make a terrible woman. I would not put up with stuff that women put up with. In fact, nobody would ever go out with me. Seriously, nobody would ever go. People would not put up with this. Well, you know, women caused the first sin. I'd strangle them. I said, really? Where do you think Adam was? Now, what's fascinating about this, from this derives the doctrine of original sin, the fall of man because they ate some fruit. Where does this come from? Then it says, by the way, one thing you guys all miss, are you ready for this? Who created the serpent to begin with? That is a key question. Let me read you a direct quote from Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Are you ready? Now the serpent was more dodgy, more crafty, more shifty, words, than any other creature the Lord God had made. Yes, God created this thing. So I always ask myself, wait a minute. This is all wrong. Why, if God is supposed to be all creating, all knowing, and all powerful, God had to know what was going to happen before it happened. Am I right? Therefore, why would you create a serpent knowing full well what this thing is going to do? Why would you create Adam and Eve knowing they're going to fail and then get mad? Explain to me how you could do that. I mean, I can see a middle school kid taking off his glasses and saying, who created this? And saying to God, why did you do that? What is wrong with you? I can see a middle schooler saying to God, what is wrong with you? Setting this thing loose, and then getting mad. You create, and by the way, if God is all powerful, did you ever see anything in that story about God's taking God's power to fix it? Now, what's also very, very funny, by the way, at the end of the story, are these two supposed to be dead, by the way? They ate the fruit, you're supposed to die. At the end of the story, and in the next chapters, guess who's still alive and well? Adam and Eve, and they're still fighting with God. Still messy, still codependent. The story is just filled with all kinds of loopholes. So meanwhile, you and I get stuck with this doctrine of original sin as if, in fact, there were an original Adam and Eve, and this God is a good, just God. I don't see it. First of all, anthropology tells us, by the way, I don't know if you know this website. It's called Live Science. Do any of you know this? You should get it. Everything you and I learned about how human beings got started is out the window. For instance, I bet you didn't know this. I didn't know this until last year. It turns out there was not one group of our type. There were three different sets of groups of our type that evolved independently as Homo sapiens. There was a group in East Africa, a group in West Africa, and a group in South Africa. They were all Homo sapien. They'd never met each other and finally bumped into each other. It turns out that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens had bred more than we realized. It turns out that that Denisovians had bred more than we realized. And it turns out there are a number of ghost groups who bred with Homo sapiens as well. We are not this tree of this one group came from Adam and Eve. We are, in fact, several Homo sapien types that bumped into each other, bumped into other groups, and bumped into other groups. And about 300 to 500,000 years ago, we became roughly what we are today. The idea that one couple popped up out of nowhere and are responsible for all of this simply does not make sense in any anthropological record whatsoever. The literalists who say, well, you got it all wrong, don't seem to realize the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. It is 4.53 billion years old. And the hominid of which we are part of is very, very complex and extraordinarily messy with interbreeding all over the place. What you and I have today has Denisovian in us, has Neanderthal in us, as well as what we call now modern Homo sapien. It is absolutely fascinating, a mix. So we take a look then at the story of sin and where it came from. And I don't know about you, none of it's very helpful. I don't believe Adam and Eve were a person at all. I believe people were asked, different groups at different times, asked, how do we begin? And there are different answers to that. And what you're really getting in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, you get it in the New Testament too, are different groups of people who have different ideas, and somebody ultimately winds up editing them together. And yes, they don't all agree. There are two creation stories. There's the story of Adam and Eve, but then there's the 7 days. Oh my heavens, there are two. Everybody knows 40 days and 40 nights of the flood. Go to the next chapter, and what does it say? 150 days. Where did that come from? Nobody ever reads that one. And then there's the famous thing we did yesterday. Yesterday in Exodus 32. Right in the beginning of the chapter it says, and Moses used to speak to God face to face as a friend. Then, what does it say? A mere 5 verses later, Moses says, may I see your glory? And God says to Moses, no one may see me and live. What? What is that? We either see God face to face as a friend, or we see God and die. Different points of view. We have different points of view all over the place. Where does that get us? I have some ideas. You ready for this? Number one, our species has serious behavioral issues. Let's be honest. As a species, we're not terribly great. I looked this up the other day because I couldn't believe it was that bad. And are you ready for this? In the 20th century, there is a huge debate, this is embarrassing, of how many human beings died unnecessarily in the 20th century. This is from warfare, starvation, etc. The lowest number is 180 million people died innocently, or of warfare, or things like that. The highest number is 231 million in just 1 century. This is Homo sapiens. We have serious behavior issues, and very frankly, it's something that we don't like to talk about. You talk about the Gaza Strip, you talk about the Congo. Where do you begin? Where do you end? Where do you end? The United States just witnessed a whole bunch of shootings in the last 2 weeks. Again, people getting guns and shooting. But we need to have our rights to hold weapons, Claus. We need to hold weapons. I don't know if any of you remember that when the Constitution was written and the amendments to the Constitution, the average weapon weighed several pounds. was a rifle that was singly loaded, was a flintlock. And if you shot it, you probably missed by a wide distance. You also probably broke your shoulder too because of the kickback. If you ever saw a pistol back then, the pistol weighed 10 pounds, and you probably blew it up in your hand before you shot somebody. Now you've got AK-47s. But we need our weapons, Claus. We need our weapons. Our species has several issues. The other issue is, and I want you to look at me clearly, everybody, about this, because this is unpleasant. All right? What is our closest ancestor? What is our closest ancestor? Anybody? Our closest ancestor. No, it's not the
among living species, chimps and bonobos.
Yes, chimps and bonobos. Bonobos are fairly sweet. The other chimpanzees separated by the Congo River, guess what? And guess which chimpanzee we are? 98.8% of the violent chimps. That's us. And nobody likes to talk about it. Not only do we not like to mention that we are a violent species, nobody likes to admit the fact, well, I get this all. What Claus? That was 7 million years ago. I tell my students, if you really want to understand human behavior, take primatology 101 before you take psychology 101. Let me give you two examples. I hope you'll all laugh at this. Women, have you ever understood why you see males slapping each other on the butt when they're playing football or soccer, and wondering, like, why are all these manly men slapping each other like that? What's that all about? Male chimps do that all the time in troops to show respect. When you see the President of the United States walk down, do you know everybody has to touch him? Did you ever notice that? All these hands come out of nowhere. It's like weird. When the head of the troop, usually a male bully, comes by, you have to touch the male bully to show respect and your place in the order of things. You would be amazed. Chimpanzees, yes, our 98.8% involve warfare. They will go after smaller troops of chimps. They will slaughter, cannibalize, and do aggressive behaviors. When you take a look at a troop of chimpanzees today, you will see so much human behavior, it will be embarrassing. So number one, we need to be honest about our species. Number two, everyone has sinned. Yes. There are no goodies here, folks, including the clergy. I've often said to the clergy, guess what? I said, I have bought stock in cold water and air conditioning. And they said, why? I said, because when we all go below, when the time comes, I want to be sure that I can rent you air conditioning and sell you cold water, because that's where we're all going to be. Everybody sins. Everybody will continue to sin and get over it, folks. It's the way it is. Some of us will sin individually. Some of us will sin in groups. Some of us will sin in countries, and some of us will sin in multiple countries. Some of us will have minor sins, and occasionally we'll have a major sin as well. It is the human condition. Number three, you're going to love this. Do you have favorites? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand and tell me your favorite personal sin. Please don't do that. Naki, tell the bird he doesn't have to do that. You do not have to do that. But people tend to repeat similar sins. That's a fact. And you might say, how do you know that, Kenneth? Because though we do not have confessionals, do people talk to clergy if they trust them about things that they really do? And the answer is yes. And by the way, I have to tell you this honestly, you'd be amazed at the number of very, very conservative Christians who have sought me out over the years because they don't dare tell their own minister things they need to say. You would be shocked. I know you have a reputation for being open-minded and will listen. Please, that's why I've come to you. I will be thrown out. I'll be humiliated in front of my congregation and thrown out. I can't do that. Would you please listen to me? I have heard that more times than you can imagine. But we have favorites. There's some sins that we tend to favor over others. You might want to think about that. What are your favorites? Number four, the Hindus were right. The Hindus were right. Our behavior does have one of the worst words in the English language, consequences. Ooh. And you might want to ask, what is the whole idea about sin? What about people who are really bad? I think you and I probably don't believe in hell. But what do you do with people like Putin? What do you do with people who want to do and get rid of all the people in Gaza, even if you have to kill them all? What do you do? And I will not mention certain politicians. What do you do? What do you do with those types of people that are just bad, mean and bad? The Hindus say, this is interesting, everybody ultimately will become one with divine reality, ultimately. And those that are bad will have a very, 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 very long time in doing it. And it starts coming back with being reincarnated as a worm. Oh, I love it. Can you see Putin as a worm? I can think of some others too, or as a cockroach. Sorry. The idea is consequences, and you have consequences for your behavior. Which means when you get down to it, most of us are neither really good nor bad. And so what we do is we have consequences. And I think everybody here is seeing consequences to behavior. It's a weird thing how that works. I tell my students, have you ever woken up and you're really in a bad mood, you don't know why, and you pick fights with everybody and you go out to start the car and find out you're out of gas? I said, do you ever pick fights with something you've been really nasty and you get a pop quiz? I said, things catch up to us in a way. Things catch up to us in a way. But the good news is you work it through. And in Hinduism, the idea is you work through what you have to work through, and then you go on and you continue. But the consequences, good and bad, must be dealt with. So, number one, our species has serious behavioral issues. Number two, everybody has sinned. We will continue to do so. We tend to have favorites, believe it or not. Maybe the Hindus are right. We need to take a look at consequences, as everything that we do does have consequences. And number five, we need to identify our sins and work on them. We sin as individuals. We behave badly as families sometimes. We behave badly as groups sometimes. We behave badly as a country sometimes. The present administration has ruined our relationships with one of our closest friends, Canada. Canada has been one of our buddies. I remember when I was in Port Orange, and I don't know if Gail and Tom remember this, but we used to have tons of Canadians every year, and they would come down to the greater Daytona Beach area, and we would have this Canada Sunday. And we would take something from the Anglican Church of England prayer book, and we'd take something from the United Church of Canada prayer book, and we'd have prayers that were Anglican prayers, United Church. We'd have flags of all the churches up. We'd sing the American Star Spangled Banner. We'd sing "O Canada," and we would celebrate our being together as two countries. And you've seen what's happened in a short few months. 35% tariffs, insulting, we're going to take you over, we're going to make you our next state. I mean, the kind of behavior. So sins are not just individual. They can involve family, groups, countries, and even the planet. I would suggest that we begin not about why we sin, but what we're going to do about correcting when we can. Making amends for our behavior is not only for rehab alumni. Let me say that again. Making amends is not for rehab alumni only. In rehab, you learn, you make mistakes. And some of them are genetic too, and not acknowledging. My first big mistake was with alcohol. I refused to acknowledge I had a problem. Refused. Oh, I admit it once in a while, but I refused, and that cost me my first career, ultimately. And I remember going, and I hope you'll enjoy this. This is really funny. This is a tell on me. when I did go voluntarily to rehab, by the way. Nobody made me go. That's the good news. I went voluntarily. So we're sitting there. We have to talk about all the things we did to the people did to us. So we had a spot here, things your mother did, things your father did, things your siblings, the siblings, things your siblings did. Then I said, what's this over here? Then the therapist said, this is all the stuff you've done. I said, what does that mean? They said, this and this and this and this. That's all the stuff you have done. Why do you think you're here? It's time to own up to your behaviors, to acknowledge your behaviors, know what they are, and they begin to see how you try not to repeat them again. So, we are all in the same boat. We're human. We have things that we have inherited. 98.8% of us is chimpanzee, and we have inherited a lot of their aggressive behavior. That is a fact. Number two, we have our own individual stubbornness. Everybody here can be stubborn. You know that. We all can be stubborn from time to time. We can be willful from time to time. And so we often get in the way of ourselves, and in the way of getting in the way of ourselves, we get in the way of our friends and people around us. And number three, I just read this the other day, and I hope this scares the wits out of everybody. This is a new study of the human brain. I hope you're ready for this. Scientists have known that mice and other animals are drawn to fights. Until now, we didn't know how the brain was involved. A new study says that some clusters of brain cells in us are also behind the craving of violence. What does that mean? We have brain cells that love violence. When I said our species tends towards bad behavior, I had no idea that our brain cells were involved. Aggression occurs virtually among all vertebrates, but nobody is as aggressive as chimpanzees, and we come in worse than chimpanzees. We have found that the reward pathway in the brain becomes engaged in response to aggressive events, and dopamine is involved. So when you and I get aggressive, and we get aggressive as individuals, we get dopamine goes into the brain, and it rewards by a good feeling. That is scary as all get out. So I'm saying our job is to be honest about us as individuals, honest to be about us as species, to make amends daily to ourselves, to make amends daily to others, to keep a daily inventory. This does not mean you have to be a rehab alumni to do this. It means that you and I need to be very, very careful of who and what we do as a species, individually, in families, in countries, and the planet. So we hold hands. We acknowledge we have work to do. We acknowledge we're not perfect, and we acknowledge we're going to do it together. All souls is DEI, folks. You want a definition of DEI? Here it is. And that meant in that DEI, we work together to support each other when things go wrong. We support each other to make amends. We support each other on the pathway. And when we fall and make mistakes and we mess up, we help each other out. That's what we do. That's what congregations do. That's what healthy congregations do. And I hope that's us. I hope that's us. May it be so. As Andrea always says, Amen, Ashe, blessed be. There is a passage in the Gospel of John that modern scholars say was added to the Gospel. And I just know that there are groups that are furious that it was. Jesus is sitting and writing something in the sand. And you've heard the story before, but bears repeating. A very angry group of male elders bring this woman, and they said, "Teacher," and he's writing in the sand, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. Notice they didn't bring the male, they brought the woman. You know what the law says. What do you say? And he is in the sand. And he looks up and he said, you who are without sin, you cast the first stone. Dead silence. Quietly, one by one, they walk away. And Jesus says to the woman, well, where are they? I see there's nobody here left. He looked at her and he said, go, sin no more. Get it right. Bless you. And she left. Why don't we hear that more often? Let this meal be a dedication to the kinds of things where we pick each other up. We don't cast the stone. We don't yell insults. We don't get judgmental and angry and nasty. Let this meal be a simple meal of bread and cup. And may we, if you will, symbolically hold hands to reaffirm each other in all that we can do. The good days, the bad days, the days when we need lifting up, the days when we need to cry, the days we need to hold each other together. And then let us repeat after us those famous words. Isn't it interesting? A children's story can be so powerful. And Felix, if you would. Repeat after me, if you would. Promise me you'll remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think. God didn't promise days without pain, laughter without sorrows, sun without rain. But the divine did promise strength for the day, comfort for the tears, and light for the way. And Andrea, if you lead us in the concluding prayer, which you so beautifully wrote.
Most holy God, known by so many names and none, hear us. Hear us, O God, as we, a people bent to the point of breaking, a people trembling under the casual cruelty of others. Those who act in your name, we cry aloud for mercy. Mercy for ourselves, mercy for our neighbors, mercy for the immigrants, mercy for the poor, mercy for the rich, mercy for the brokenhearted and wholehearted, mercy for the sick, the dying, the dead, mercy for the living, for ours is the burden of memory. Mercy, O God, for the breath we forget to take. Selah.
The final prayer is also written by Andrea, and if I have her blessing, I'll read it this time. She wrote all these beautiful prayers today. You'll see me using these regularly. May the God of sunny days and good music be with us, reminding us of the work we have yet to do. May the God of dark places be with us, reminding us that we are not alone. May the God of mercy and compassion be with us, reminding us that justice without redemption is just polite cruelty. May the God of winding roads be with us, always with us, reminding us each day that the way from here to there is never a straight line, but one made better by those we encounter along the way. Selah. Amen, Ashe, blessed be. May it be so, and may we be the ones who make it so. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all very, very much for being here today. Let's see, we got Rick and Judy, and we've got Felix, who did a beautiful job filling in on the spur of the moment. Thank you for that, Felix. Andrea, thank you for your writing. Gail and Tom, were you there when we had Canada Sundays? Were you there when we did that?
That snowed.
Remember that? Wasn't that Wonderland? Yes. Ray is here this morning. Good morning, Ray. We've got Nick, we got Anaki, we got Pam, we got there she is, Nikki. Yes, we got Pat Sullivan, Maureen Sullivan, Rory Feeney, Cindy and Larry, Barbara. Barbara is the wife of my very first chairman at Miami-Dade College, and Danny Sorkin. So we got all of you here this morning. I cannot tell you how beautiful this is in the dead of August. You know, this is, I remember I told you I learned from a Lao Shaller decades ago, you do not stop in the summertime. You keep going. So we had a nice attendance yesterday, a nice attendance today in the dead of summer. You know, it really warms, and this sounds corny, but it really warms your heart to see people come out and to share, to listen, to think and share together and read together. It really is just a beautiful thing, especially in this day and age. So thank you all. Be safe and well. We got hearts up there, and we've got oh my heavens, God, let there be dikes.
Let there be dikes.
I'm going to be sending you something from Judy. We need to talk about a social justice committee. If anybody's interested, email me ASAP. Our cousins, do you like that, Judy? Our cousins at UU Miami are putting together something about alligator Alcatraz, which is unfortunately not very far from us and exists. So if any of you are interested, let me know, and we'll see if we can't join our cousins and work with them too. So again, Rory, best to you and Griselle and your daughter who just had a birthday a month ago. Cindy and Larry are here from Port Orange. Barbara Young is from South Miami. Danny is from Forest Hills. Pam is from Forest Hills. Nikki is from Cutler Bay. Pat is from Forest Hills. Maureen is from Farm Country. Gail and Tom are from Port Orange. Ray is in Washington Heights. Nick is out near the airport. Anaki is in Georgia. My, oh my. Stop it, Kenneth. We've got Felix is up in North Miami. And Andrea, thank you so much for reading it and helping out. And you'll remember, Andrea, as I was acting out the story of the Garden of Eden, holding your head going. One of the great displays. It was wonderful. Thank you all, everybody. Have a good day, a good week. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Blessings all.
Thank you. Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
week, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
Everyone.
week.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.